Is everybody in? Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The ceremony is about to begin.
Good morning. That's a brilliant way to start the new week, isn't it? When you create a special standalone video intro and it doesn't play. So you have to use one you've used in the past. My apologies. Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I'm still swallowing coffee. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all fit and well. Well, what a sorry state the world is in right now. The conflict in the Middle East has kicked off yet again. The Ukraine war is still killing people at an alarming rate. And there is a deadly earthquake in Afghanistan over the weekend that has potentially killed more than 2,000 people. It suddenly feels like the flashback scenes in a dystopian sci-fi movie as the protagonist reminisces about the time before. In addition to all that, it seems as though work is becoming harder and harder to come by here in the UK. I know several members of our audience that are currently out there seeking work. And that pursuit seems to be taking an awful lot longer than it did just a few months ago. It's all pretty bleak, particularly for a Monday morning. However, hopefully we can bring you some cheer and some respite from all of that. Obviously, we have today's show, which will hopefully raise your spirits just a little bit. And in addition to that, my latest weekly column is now available for you to read over on our Demolition Insider website, which you can, when I get to the right button. Yes. Wow. Intro goes wrong and everything falls apart. I'm going to say good morning as well to Chris Ford, to Andy Darvell, to Dan Cullen, and to Gary Muirhead, who have just popped up in the chat, and to Mark Whiting as well. Yeah, there is a new column. It does go some way to explaining why I wasn't here Friday before last. I was actually over in Italy, rather. And this one recounts my trip to Milan to see the top-down way demolition system from Italian demolition giant Despe. Now, we are working on a new video that will show you just what the top-down way is all about, and we will be sharing that right here on this show just as soon as it's ready. But if you'd like to read about the system, you can do so now using the link in the chat. I have to admit, I am very, very proud of the article. It's longer than our usual fare. It's about 2,000 words, so grab yourself a cup of coffee before you start and have a look. Let's have a look. We've just had... Eric Thompson, local 225 Labour, Chicago. Not entire Chicago, Illinois. Not sure why he's sharing that, but good morning to you, Eric. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Don't remember seeing you here before. So, on that basis, let me quickly give you some welcome confetti to say welcome aboard the runaway train that is the Breakfast Show. Yeah, my new article, as I say, over on Demolition Insider is called The Fourth Way. You can grab it now using the links that I've already posted in the chat. Just one more thing before we get the show properly underway. I can now confirm that our all-electric evening show will take place at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, the 18th of October. Wednesday, the 18th of October at 7 p.m. We're still working on the content, but you can expect contributions from the likes of Caterpillar, Komatsu, JCB, Volvo, Bobcat, and many more besides. So mark that date in your diary, 18th of October, 7 p.m. UK time, obviously. That's Wednesday week, not this Wednesday, the Wednesday after. Now, you can, of course, have your say on today's show in the usual way. Just type any comment or question into the chat. But if you would like to leave us, or basically lend your voice to the show, you can do so as well. Just leave us a voicemail message, and I will show you how to do that over in the chat. I have a button for this, which is that one. There you are. Leave us a voicemail message. It comes to me as an MP3, which means I may well be able to play it on the show at some point. I'm going to say good morning to Graham Footy Williams, who's just joined us as well. Please leave us a message and we'll do our best to actually play it. Now, without further ado, while I regain my composure, because the intro didn't work, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. That's the wrong button. It is Monday, the 9th of October. Welcome to the Field of Dreams that is the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, there's a big bang in Georgia in the US of A. We're getting attached to Liebherr. New Holland Construction is on the skids. It'll make more sense when you see it. And we're mucking about with Menzie. You'll get that when we get there as well. And over and above all of that, we're going proper old school with some vintage American plant and equipment right at the very end of the show. But before we get to all of that, let us peer back through the mists of time to see what was happening on this very day in history. On this day in 1665, British Parliament met at the University of Oxford. Not because they fancied a day out, but because the Palace of Westminster was in the grip of the Great Plague. Kind of feels like recent history, that, doesn't it? In 1936, the Hoover Dam began generating electricity to Los Angeles. In 1941, US President Franklin D. Roosevelt approved the atomic program that would ultimately be known as the Manhattan Project. That rings a bell. In 1947, the first reported telephone conversation between an aeroplane and a moving car was reported. And in 1985, the Strawberry Fields Memorial to John Lennon opened in Central Park, New York. And finally, in 2017, Harvey Weinstein was fired from his own company for sexual assault allegations that ultimately transpired to be rather more than just allegations. Now, before we get into the real meat of the show, let me remind you very quickly of our question of the day. Yeah, a little bit morbid, but our question of the day once again comes from our resident quizmaster, Mr. Gary Muirhead. It's simply this. When you're packed off to meet your maker many, many years hence, what would you like inscribed on your headstone? And I do have kind of a linked story to go with this. After my best friend's cremation a few years ago, I was stood with 3 girls and a guy that both my best mate and I went to school with. I tried to lighten the mood, and I said that I had a wish for my own funeral. I wanted someone to stand up in the middle of the ceremony and to shout out, he was a magnificent lover. All the 3 girls refused, but the one guy, the goalkeeper from my high school football team, promised that he would do it. In the nicest possible way now, I hope he goes first. But what about you? What would you like inscribed on your headstone or written in your obituary? Let us have your thoughts in the chat, and we'll come back to that right at the end of the show. But we need to actually do some things now. And we're going to start this week with a bang, and it's a bang that comes all the way from Georgia in the US of A. Those fine folks at Controlled Demolition Inc., or CDI, have been at it again, and this time their explosive prowess was focused on a 125-foot poultry feed head house in the town of Calhoun in Georgia. I'll let the pictures do the talking, but I do need to dredge this out of my computer, so bear with me 1 second while I do that. It's a video file, and it is roughly, I think it's this one. Let's have a look.
set. Here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire.
It's a cliche, given that they're the world's biggest explosive demolition company, but hats off to CDI for yet another job well done. Excuse me 1 second. The coffee went down the wrong hole this morning. I do apologise. Let me remove that from the studio because it's going to bung up the works otherwise. Yes, hats off to CDI, and we'll be right back after this, trying to get this show back on track after the cock up at the beginning.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, a couple of comments on the CDI video. There's Andy Darvell. Morning, Andy. Solid building to stay so intact when dropped on its side. Eric Thompson, who I think is over in Chicago. Good morning, Eric. Andy Darvell, great observation. Totally agree. Was well built to withstand that and stay in one piece. Totally agree. And Graham Footy Williams is asking if Dan has got himself a new job. According to the WhatsApp group this morning, I don't think he has, but I'm sure he'll answer that in the fullness of time. Now, let me roll one of these.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
If I said to you the name Liebherr, what are you thinking of? Excavators? Dozers? Wheel loaders? Cranes? I hope not cranes, but cranes? All good answers, I guess, and I would agree with all of them. But when I hear the name here, the name Liebherr, I don't generally think of attachments. Then again, maybe I should. Good question. Gary Muirhead, do you also think about Liebherr kitchen appliances? I don't, but did you know they also have hotels? They also have a vineyard, the Liebherr Vineyard. You already know that the Liebherr wine is going to be fantastic, don't you? Jim Turner just joined up. Jim, your sweatshirt will be on its way in about an hour's time because it's now in a package ready to go now that I have your postal address. Next up, we are going to be taking a look at the very latest in... no, let me see. That's not where I need to be. That was a look at the now. Sorry, I'm all over the place this morning. That was a look at the now, but we have a fantastic trip down memory lane for you at the end of the show. But we do have a bit more to bring you before that. I'll be bringing that to you right after this. We've heard again from our friend over in potentially Chicago. Eric Thompson says, we deal with Bobcats and Volvo. Given that you deal with Bobcats, you might want to look away right now. Forgive me. Let's have a look. Where are we? Yeah, next up, we're going to be looking, taking a look at the very latest. Oh, dear God. What a terrible start to the week, eh? Next up, we're going to be taking a look at the very latest line in New Holland Construction skid steer loaders. The machines don't really need any introduction. So what say I just hit the play button and let the show take care of itself.
Skid steer loaders. As we all know that a skid steer loader is actually a tool carrier. You can add anything to your skid steer. So your offering when it comes to versatility on a skid steer is endless. Skid steer loader application in construction is just as versatile. From using the bucket as a front end loader, cleaning up dirt, loading gravel onto 10-ton trucks, put a little jackhammer on for demolition. So in the broader sense of things, your little skid steer is going to become your workhorse in your farming industry and in your construction industry. If you don't have a skid steer, hey, sorry, mate.
I have to say, mightily impressed with those New Holland skid steers, even more impressed by the video. But what are you saying? Do you believe those New Holland skid steers to be hot or not? Let me know in the chat. Now, we had a newcomer in our midst. Looks like we might have lost him already. I'm not going to repeat what he said, but Eric Thompson looks like he's on his way out the door. And Andy Darvell sums up the feelings of us all. Don't let that door hit you on the way out, Eric. Fantastic. Well put, Andy. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen says, New Holland, interesting skid steer. Dan Cullen says, hot. Gary Muirhead says hot too. Looks like a high left arm on the New Holland. I think it is, actually. Yeah, absolutely. Gary Muirhead, a skid steer. It's like a swish. Is that a Swiss Army knife or a Swiss Army knife? But yes, absolutely. No glass wouldn't be my cup of tea, says Dan Cullen, but he still believes it to be hot. So well said, Dan. Right, let's get this show back on the road with a little bit of this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
The Menzimuck excavator really is a one-of-a-kind machine. It draws the crowds at every single international exhibition, and it is beloved by anyone working on exceptionally steep slopes or on mountainsides. But I wouldn't normally associate it with demolition applications, particularly bridge demolition applications. And yet, got to be honest, I'd be a bit worried about those tyres with all that rebar about the place, but the machine itself looked more than up to the job. Just going to have a quick look. Comment here from this is actually from the previous film. This is Back to the New Holland. Jim Turner, good morning, Jim. Says, good little tool if you've got plenty of attachments. I don't see why every backhoe loader doesn't come with a front quick hitch. Like skid steers, to me, a machine is brought to do as much as possible. Backhoe loaders are the ultimate Swiss Army knife, but even more so with a front quick hitch. I totally agree. Bit of fandom for the Menzimuck. Love to get a go on one of those, says Dan Cullen. Which, funnily enough, responds to Graham Footy Williams saying, Dan, you want to drive one of them? Apparently he does. And I don't blame him. I'm not entirely sure I'd ever get to grips with the whole spidery thing that they do, but maybe that's just me. Now, let's have a bit of this, because it is almost time to go old school.
If you would like to buy a limited edition Break Fast show sticker, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/demolition news/extras.
Okay, I promised you old school, and old school you shall jolly well have. This film was shot at a vintage plant and steam fair in Pennsylvania. As you're about to see, it features some absolutely classic items of plant from the industry of yesteryear. I need to drag this from my computer as well because it's quite a big file. Bear with me 1 second while I do that. It looks like this. Yes, welcome to the Antiques Roadshow. I hope you like that. There is just something, I don't know what it is. There's just something about the colour of weather-beaten paint, isn't there? Now, with all that's going on in the world, I'm just going to have a quick look in the chat. I know Graham Footy Williams just said, love the music to accompany that. I chose that. I'm going to take all full credit for that. And Andy Dovell says, yes, the music is perfect. It just seemed kind of appropriate. With all that's going on in the world, I honestly couldn't bring myself to do a gripe of the day today. I know mine are always tongue-in-cheek, but frankly, there are bigger issues out there right now. So without further ado, I'm going to wrap up today's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. Hopefully you've all got some cheer to share amongst us, so that we can all leave the show with a smile rather than a frown and a scowl. If you can't stick around, then please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends and your colleagues. But if you do have the time and the inclination, please stick around, because the Craic will begin just as soon as I've played this from our key show sponsor. Now, bit of Monkey Trap. That's what Monkey Trap sounds like. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all fitting well. I can only apologise for the lack of intro on today's show. I made it, I pressed the button, and nothing happened. Not a clue. Threw me off completely for the first half of the show. It doesn't take a lot. I'm going to say good morning to Dan Cullen. Dan, are you back in work now? I'd like to know. Just on that subject, and we will come back to other bits and pieces. Obviously, Peter McKenna, unfortunately, because of his health and medical problems, he's in and out of work quite a bit anyway. Graham Footy Williams, in and out of work as well. But Dan Cullen is regularly in work. And yet it does seem like it's getting harder and harder to find that work. Is that a slowdown? Is that the economy coming home to roost? Are we looking at a bad 2024? Love to get your feelings in the chat. While you're doing that, Andy Darvell says, good morning. Kind of wish I could end that with Vietnam, but it's got nothing to do with Vietnam. Good morning, Andy. Good of you to join us. Glenn Johnson is in the house. Morning, Glenn. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Do appreciate your presence as always. Dan Cullen says, how the bejesus are we all this wonderful Monday morning? Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. I did have a wonderful weekend. Date night on Saturday. One of those bizarre things. Part of the reason for doing date night with the long-suffering Mrs. Demolition News was because we don't get any time to ourselves. So we decided, just the two of us, no kids or other people involved, we'll take ourselves off to my wife's favourite Thai restaurant. And we got there, and I reckon we knew 3/4 of the people in the restaurant. We've not been there for about a year, even though it is my wife's favourite. And we walked through the door and we knew everyone. So suddenly our little romantic dinner became a bit of a free-for-all, but it was good fun nonetheless. Chris Ford is with us. Morning, Chris. Hope you're fitting well, my friend. And there's Gary Muirhead, who now, I don't know if anybody noticed, but I do have a new button for Gary. And it said, I don't refer to him as the smooth operator anymore. He is now officially the Quizmaster. Good morning, Gary. And thank you for today's question. I'll come back to that in just a second. Let's have a look at, and Dan Cullen's got a new name as well. Dan Cullen used to be Dan Groups Cullen. He is now Dan Hats Cullen. If you watch the show on a regular basis, you'll know. Dan is quite the hat fan. It seemed appropriate for a change, and I didn't have a great deal to do yesterday. There's Andy Dover. See, it's a nickname that's caught on already. Morning Hats. Yes, Morning Hats indeed. There is a link to my article. Just go to demolitioninsider.substack.com or follow the link in the chat there. I have to say, as I say, it was a labour of love, this one. I could have just produced 800-900 words, which is what I normally do, whack it on Demolition News and hope for the best, but it deserved more. The system itself is fantastic. The people behind it are even more fantastic. So I've gone to town. There's a couple of thousand words there. Lots of illustrations, a couple of little mini video clips as well. Go and take a look. Hit the subscribe button while you're there. I'd be very grateful. Mark Whiting's here as well. Morning, Mark. Hope you had a good weekend, my friend. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Dan Cullen's doing all the good mornings for everybody. Morning, Chris Ford, Andy Delvell, Gary Muirhead. It's morning indeed. And there was quite possibly our shortest refugee here. Shortest stay refugee here at the Breakfast Show. He was here, He said a few things and then he left. We'll come back to that. Graham Footy Williams says, good morning, bro. Good morning to you, Graham. Hope you're fitting well, my friend. Let's have a look. Now, I've reminded everybody, 7 p.m, 18th of October, that is going to be our all-electric show. I didn't need to remind Graham, though, because it is his birthday. He is a 62-year-old come that show, so we may have to raise a glass or throw up some confetti or do something to celebrate. Good morning. I'm on tarmac, so can't stop. Not a problem, Ken. Fully understand. Priorities, mate. Work first. Family first. Work second, and then me. And I know my place in the grand scheme of things. Our friend Leslie McGickey is here as well. Morning, Leslie. Hope you're fitting well. Now, Gary Muirhead, I tweaked this slightly just to get it into a brief question, basically. But Gary Muirhead's question of the day was this: what would you like inscribed on your headstone, or what would you like your obituary to be? And he has, I have to say, he has come up with the best answer of his own. What would I like? I don't know. Wrote a lot of words, some of them good. That would be nice. Listen, I won't be around. By the time it's on my headstone, although I'm going to be cremated, by the time it's on my headstone, I really won't care anymore. Ken Hatcher, it looks like, see, the power of this show, I can create a nickname, and not only does it spread, but it also becomes an obituary as well. Ken Hatcher wants inscribed on his headstone, Sprocket Man. Seems wholly appropriate as well. And I do like the idea of people in sort of 50, maybe 100 years' time walking past the mausoleum given to Ken Hatcher, and it just says Kenneth Hatcher, Sprocket Man. I'd love to see the look on their faces, like, what the hell? What did he invent the sprocket? What did he collect them? What? I'd just love to see the look on their face. Now, I did mention the fact that Gary Muirhead not only came up with the question, but has probably come up with the best answer. Here it is. Question of the day. My wife would put, here lies Gary, stiff at last. Oh dear, that has made my morning. Well done, Gary. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen. Mine, a multitasker, a lover of cats and all things plant and freebies. It's going to be quite a big headstone, that, but yeah, that seems fairly good, I think. Eric Thompson was possibly with Milburn Demolition in Chicago. He was with us for a little while as well. Yeah, do you know, that is still one of my ambitions, I have to say. I've seen plenty of explosive demolitions in my time, but I would love to get along to a CDI one in person. Come close a couple of times, not with CDI, funny enough, but with some of the people they've been working with. But it just couldn't make the dates work. And unfortunately, because of the nature of the thing, you know, it's literally a case of the weather. We've got a weather window. Get yourself over here and getting yourself to, where was that one? Georgia. The town of Calhoun at a moment's notice, not particularly easy. Eric Thompson, not impressed by the dust control on the CDI job, but what you going to do? What you going to do when you've got that much dust coming down? Dan Cullen says, looks like the building had second thoughts. Yeah, it's always a worry when they do that. That kind of sit down and then over they go. If you're the explosive engineer on that, you must be, oh God, oh, thank God for that. Andy Dovell, solid building to say so intact, but it dropped on its side. It's amazing how they do that sometimes. There's a very famous video over on YouTube. I wish I could remember what it was called. I know it was shot in Turkey, where they've undercut a building, and ultimately the tower block, and it's like 6-7 stories high. The tower block pitches forward, but then rolls and does a complete 360, but remains intact. An entire tower block doing a roly-poly, effectively. Go and have a look. You'll thank me. Let's have a look. Was well built to withstand that and stay in one piece. You're dead right. There's Graham Williams saying, did you get a job, Dan? Nothing as yet, unfortunately. As I say, it is getting tougher out there. Do I think about... Did you see the thing doing the rounds last week or the week before? How often do you think about the Roman Empire? I didn't think I thought of it very often, apart from the fact that obviously my name is Mark Anthony, and when I say that to somebody I've never met before, they always do the Friends Romans countrymen. Turns out people think of the Roman Empire an awful lot more often than you might think. I have no idea why. Jim Turner is here as well. Good morning, Jim. Hope you're fitting well. As I've already said, your sweatshirt will be on its way just as soon as this show is over. I'm going to stroll on down to the post office, probably via the cafe and a bacon sarnie, and I'll be getting that in the post for you. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen says, shared on my WhatsApp and Facebook. And then Eric Thompson apparently grew tired of all my stumbling this morning and left. Not entirely quietly. I don't know why. Lots of people saying good morning to each other. Don't let the door hit you on the way out, Eric. Thank you for that, Andy. Yeah, lots of praise for the new Holland skid steers. It's a Swiss Army knife. Looks like a good high left armor on the New Holland. I think that video was actually made for the South African market, hence the accent. But yeah, certainly looks the part. There we are. Dan Cullen thinks the New Holland skid steer is hot. Gary Muirhead agrees. Footy Williams says, good for doing wheelies with. Yeah, I have to say that I realise it probably breaches every health and safety regulation on God's green earth. When you go to these exhibitions and you see some of these people doing the dancing diggers with the backhoe loader, the wheelies and that handstand, I don't know, on the front wheels, I'm sure there's a name for it. Absolutely unbelievable. Could watch that stuff around. Ben Hanratty has joined us as well. Good morning, Ben, and good morning, everyone. He says, Menzie Muck. Now, I did say it is a unique piece of kit. Obviously, it's not entirely unique because there is another one of that type out there, the name of which has gone completely out of my head. If anybody can help me with that. I know it's got a German name, but I can't remember what the German name is. It may come to me. But yeah, absolutely unbelievable piece of kit. Engineering gone mad. The closest thing I think we have to a genuine transformer. Let's have a look. Lots of people saying they like the Menzie Muck. Then we're going back. We're going back to the skid steer. Jim Turner says, good little tool if you've got plenty of attachments. I think that is the key, isn't it? If you are going all in on a skid steer, a backhoe loader, or possibly even an excavator, ultimately all of those machines are just carriers. They are just tool carriers. So the ability to switch attachments, so quick couplers and all that kind of thing, tilt rotators, but then also a good array of attachments as well. I wonder if anybody's actually done an article or a video on this, on how that has changed the owner-operator market. Back when I was still cutting my teeth on all things construction equipment, used to visit the occasional owner-operator, a lot of them driving JCB 3CXs back in the day. And the big selling point was, obviously, you can load, you can dig, and various other bits and pieces. And, lots of people used to refer to their 3CX as the mobile office. They conducted their entire business from it. They actually did the work, but they ran their business from that. I wonder how that's changed with the advent of quick couplers and with the advent of all the attachments that we've got at our disposal. Do people drive to site in a 3CX anymore? Or are you taking a mini excavator complete with an array, or a skid steer possibly, with an array of attachments? I wonder how that market's changed. If anybody knows, or if anybody's seen an article, or maybe I should get around to writing it, I don't know. You can't beat the sound and power of the old machines. Unfortunately, I had to take the sound out of that vintage plant clip because there was a lot of wind noise on it, and it just sounded bloody awful. So I whacked some old country blues on it. Jim Turner, I did think that. Jim says that's an absolutely perfect day out for me. And to keep all of that equipment moving, actually operational, there are some really dedicated plant fans out there. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen says, wow, that's a cool vintage plant show. Yeah, I have to admit, if somebody, I am going to go and have a bit of a dig around. As I say, that one took place in, I think it was Pennsylvania somewhere. I'm not entirely sure if that's an annual thing, but I tell you what, if it was an annual thing, I wouldn't mind going to that for a couple of days, go and get some footage of my own on that. Answer the question. What was the brand of those big old green dump trucks My belief was that it was a Euclid, and I think I said it was a Euclid, and Jim Turner is in agreement. If Jim and I are in agreement, then the planets align, and it's almost certainly a Euclid. But yeah, absolutely phenomenal piece of kit. And Andy Devale says, what a great day out we'd have there. I'd never want to leave until I had a go on all of them. Yeah, you and me both. Particularly, did you see the old school grader being towed behind the old cat tractor as well? Phenomenal. I'd love to have a play on some of that stuff. Chris Full, would be nice to have a vintage event that large over here. Yeah, I mean, there are vintage fairs here, but they do tend to be in little pockets about the country rather than one big one. And I know the organisers of Plantworks have tried to bring some focus to that and to bring it all into one place. The problem with it is all of that stuff takes an awful lot of moving. It costs an awful lot of money to move it about the place. So it probably makes more sense if you've got an old cat tractor up in Scotland, you probably don't want to be hauling it down to the Midlands and so on down the line. So it probably makes sense, economic sense, if nothing else, to host those things locally rather than nationally. Wow, that's a classic fun-filled day. All sorts of plant from back in the day when machines had no computers and minimal electrics. And probably lasted forever. That's Emily Euclid, said Andy Darvell. Like the music, says Footy Williams. And Andy Darvell says, yeah, the music is perfect. I don't add a lot to this show, but occasionally I do come up with some decent music. Jim Turner says, definitely must be plenty of old quarries that could accommodate it. There is a demand. I mean, literally every time we show some old plant on this show, everybody gets awfully excited about it. It would be fantastic to get everybody together to go and do that firsthand. Peter McKenna, late but welcome as ever. How have you missed me? It wasn't quite the same without you, Peter. Thank you very much indeed for being here. And he says, good morning, everyone. I think I did actually fire up the stream. Yeah, I did fire up the stream deck to say good morning. So our question of the day was, what would you like your obituary to be, or what would you like written on your headstone? And Chris Ford says, under this sod lies another. Or, which I think might well be Spike Milligan's, I told you I was ill. Why don't you go live? Why don't you go live? Thought I was. Maybe that's not aimed at me. Andy Darvell is going real. Andy Darvell's headstone is clearly being paid for by somebody that's being charged by the letter. Andy Darvell, he liked diggers. Not saying all, I have to say. Peter McKenna, going back to my question about how hard it's getting out there, and obviously he has a foot in both camps, both plant and haulage as well. And he says 40 haulage companies have gone in the last 3 months. Administrators are at an all-time high in the construction and transportation sections. Yeah, it's not looking good out there at all. Let's have a look. What's this one? Dan Cullen. I feel that, yes, Mark, as I know quite a few good operators looking for work too. And another issue is location of jobs advertised. Things are slowing quite rapidly in what I can see. Yeah, and unfortunately, we've had that situation in every recession I've ever reported on. And I don't want to tempt fate, but by and large, I mean, even in the lows of 2008, 2009, London and the southeast, I wouldn't say it wasn't affected, because it most certainly was. But it only slowed, whereas other parts of the country actually stopped. And I'm starting to get that feeling now. There's still plenty of tower cranes up over London, lots and lots of work in London. But you get out to bits like the northwest and the northeast. I realise the northeast has Tees Works, but if you're not on that, I think things are quiet there. I think if you get yourself down to the southwest, the proper southwest, down Devon, Cornwall, I think things are looking a bit slower there. It normally slows up. It's Christmas time, yeah. But unfortunately, sometimes that wind down to Christmas seems to start earlier. If you remember rightly, let me think. It would have been 2021, I think. After we'd been through the COVID and we'd had best part of 2 years in lockdown, it was almost like we worked up until Christmas morning. You know, the industry had a lot to catch up on and I think was determined and basically worked right up until the Christmas period. Doesn't feel like that this time. It's only October, and bearing in mind, I don't know what it's been like where you are, but I was out in shorts and t-shirts over the weekend. Absolutely glorious. I mean, there were people sunbathing in my local park on, when was that, Sunday afternoon. It's been that warm. So there's plenty of opportunity to get out and work if there is opportunity. Our friend Garvin is here as well from Mostly Diggers. High cost of borrowing for home buyers and inflation on costs associated with building is quickly killing off that end of the sector. Commercial building is slowing. Civils is ticking along. And it's at times like this I wish that Neil Edwards was still a regular on the show, because if you followed our business briefings with Neil Edwards over the past 4 or 5 years, both in print and for 3 years here on this show, house building was regularly contributing somewhere between a third and a half of all construction activity in the UK. If that has slowed, and it has, as our friend Garvin has just said, where does that leave us? And bearing in mind, you will remember when we were speaking to Neil regularly, the baseline for construction was something like 4 billion in new contract awards each and every month. If house building isn't generating 2 or 1.5 of that, what are the figures looking like now? All electric show. I'll bring my charger. Yeah, I may have to have some spare chargers as well. But yeah, looking forward to that one. I listen. I do realise that electric is not everyone's cup of tea, and I'm more than willing to take that on the chin. If you have questions, comments, or even criticisms of all things related to electric, pitch up 7 p.m. on the 18th. And let us have it. Hopefully, some of the manufacturers that we're featuring will tune in, and maybe they may even answer some of your questions as well. Graham Footy Williams said, "I've always said I'd like a Viking burial." It's a fantastic way to go out. Chris of the day. Jim Turner backfilled his last hole. Superb. Over the weekend, my bloody phone rang and been pinging all day, every day. People asking if I have any jobs going or if I can get them jobs. Yeah. Let's have a look. Question of the day. This isn't the end. It's a new beginning. Be right back. Can you imagine that on your headstone? Be right back. That would be alarming, wouldn't it? We should get Elton John to re-record Rocket Man for Kenneth's Rocket Man. Next time I bump into Elton, because obviously he and I obviously move in the same circles, I'll have a word, see if he'll knock that out for us. Peter McKenna. Alternatively, I've dug the graves, now I am a grave. I sometimes can't understand how silly sometimes people are. As I say, I'm not an employer, but yet they keep asking me if I have jobs going. Best part is still same people asking. It drives me mad. The problem is, I guess, and you have kind of put your head above the parapet with that, Dan, by forming your WhatsApp groups to help people into work. I think if you find yourself out of work, which obviously is a situation both you and Peter are facing at the moment, you're looking for any port in the storm. I think you'll just try every available opportunity to try and get yourself back into work. Because the other thing, we've just mentioned the fact that it is beginning the run up to Christmas. That must be the toughest thing about being unemployed at this time of year. And I know we do tend to get a bit of a spate of redundancies around about Christmas time. Having to go home to the wife and the kids to say basically Christmas is off because I've just been laid off through no fault of my own, but I've been laid off. Must be a very, very tough place to be. Did you see the demo job where they blew up one chimney and the one behind it fell too, but the wrong way? The shock blast took out power lines and felled trees. I didn't see that. If you've got a link for that, please send it over. Have you seen the video of the building that gets dropped and then rolls down a hill, takes out a few cars and then collides with another building? I have seen that one. I certainly have seen that one. Have you any jobs in the Northwest Power within an hour's drive of Preston, says Peter McKenna. Thank you very much indeed, Garvin. Yes, the Menzie muck that isn't a Menzie muck is made by Kaiser. And is there a more German name? And I did say it was a German name, but thank you very much indeed for putting me out of my misery. Paddy's JCB GT Turbo. Not sure what that's about. Peter McKenna, construction worker, walks into a bar and orders a stiff drink after work. 5 minutes later, the bartender brings him a glass filled to the brim with cement. Yes. Stick to the day job, Peter. Mick Saunders here. Morning, Mark and all. I had loads of problems getting on Facebook this morning. Listen, the problems began with me, unable to press the right button, and it all went horribly wrong after that. I'd have to be involved in a dig-off, loading 30-ton dumpers. Shame there are no plant shows that would do that type of challenge. Yep, the old diggings that we used to get involved in at Contract Journal were an absolute blast. There was talk we got Easter and the Beast coming back again. The Beast? Is that the Beast from the East, maybe? In London now, it's mostly all above ground jobs and plant and equipment has left sites. Thinking of changing trades, says Dan Cullen. That is always the worry. Bearing in mind with how long we spend talking about skill shortages and the need to bring people into the industry. And then you've got people with years and experience literally having to consider switching careers and switching industries just to keep the money rolling in. I was talking to Flannery's lad, and he reckons business is down 68% on what it was the same time last year. They have a slender line of operators working, but lots that aren't. And if it's hitting Flannery's, it's going to hit the rest of the industry even harder still, I would have thought. I was driving tower cranes back in 2008, and when there was a sniff of the recession, financial crisis happening, my work literally dried up overnight. My job finished in Exmouth, and that was it. No more work. Yeah. And unfortunately, despite all that was said about this new £36 billion that Rishi Sunak has apparently earmarked for transport, where, when, with who, we don't know. We could have a big old gap at the moment. Dan Cullen says, Plas, at mostly diggers, lots of housing sites scaled down due to lack of house sales. Now heard a few civils contractors on verge of going into the red. It is getting mighty tough out there, people. During that time I worked in pubs, was a bin man and did some deep sea crab fishing in Newquay. It was a brilliant time, but had bugger all money. Deep sea crab fishing. Isn't that supposed to be, and I'm sure it doesn't necessarily mean here in the UK, but isn't crab fishing one of the most dangerous occupations in the world? I think it may be. JCB GT Turbo, 180 backhoe loader. Call it a wheelbarrow, you can do any job with it. Couldn't agree more. Tristan Mays, Mr. Crane is here as well. Morning, Tristan. Hope you're fitting well. Are you working at the moment? Are you in the UK at the moment? What are you up to at the moment, Tristan? Let me know. Grey Footy Williams. Yesterday on about, we got crazy weather coming back. Snow everywhere. We were literally talking about this. We did a big tidy up in our back garden on Saturday. Kind of, that where you give the grass potentially the last cut of the season, tidied a bunch of stuff away, started to put stuff under tarps and that kind of thing, storing away a load of stuff in the shed and whatever. And my wife actually said, bearing in mind what a terrible terrible summer we had, and I realise it's gone on longer than it normally does, but most of the summer was rubbish. Do you think we'll get a mild winter? And you can't help thinking, given the way that the climate is at the moment, if we were to get blizzards in a month's time, you wouldn't be at all surprised, would you? Peter McKenna says a construction worker. Oh dear. A construction worker walks into a bar with a slab of asphalt. Bartender asks, "What can I get you?" The construction worker replies, "1 beer for me and 1 for the road." Oh dear. Beast from the East, Graham. We're getting a bit Beast from the East, are we? I tell you what, the last time we had, the time we had the Beast from the East, I was due to go up to the head office of True 7, but I was actually going to see their demolition division, David Clark over at CDC, Clark Demolition Company, and it had been planned for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I got up in the morning and I set off all the way up there, it was snowing. Not bad, but it was snowing. But by the time I came to take the journey home, I think it's in Ipswich. So I think the journey there took about 3 hours. I think the journey home took about 7. Badly timed. Mick Saunders, me and the Hound are doing night work in a scrapyard. Not that I need it, but God, I am bored of this retirement life. Take what you can get, fellas. It all helps. Yeah, absolutely right. Andy Darvell says, yeah, it's exceptionally dangerous. You get half mile of rope that was splayed out on the deck, wrapped around your foot, leg. You're going down, and that was the end of you. We often went out 60 to 100 miles offshore. Take an awfully long time for a Coast Guard chopper to get out there, let alone a lifeboat. Very brave people risking their lives every day to put food on people's plates. And I have to say, of all the fishermen out there, those are the ones for which I'm most grateful, because crab is my favourite food in the whole world. You can keep your lobster. I'm a crab man all day long. I know we were talking about Andy working out of Newquay. Best crab I ever had, Rick Stein's gaff down in Padstow. Oh, man alive, that was some good gear. Andy Darvell, I've been deep-sea crab fishing in my younger days. 3 weeks at sea, 5 days off, was 40 miles off Iceland. Spain and Norway, it was really cold and long days. 16-hour shifts, 3 hours sleep. I'm 1 hour on watch. Back then was great money, says Dan Cullen. They're getting overnight frost in Manitoba, so I was informed yesterday, and they can keep it. I might have to do something that way. Peter McKenna says lots of jobs locally for waste companies, but the rates are abysmally low, £13 per hour. Graham Williams says, come down, live in Brixton, then you'll get all you can off the boat, straight and fresh. Crab, yeah, as I say, the one that I've never done, which is bizarre, is what's the place up on the east coast? Cromer. Cromer crabs are very famous, and I used to spend quite a bit of time up at Bertram Newton, the CITB training ground. And Cromer, I know it's a way, but having gone all the way to effectively Great Yarmouth to go to Cromer is not that big a deal. Never done it. Maybe I need to. Nearly a dozen fishermen have died at sea last year, making the highest annual fatality rate for a decade. New report by the Marine Accident Investigation Branch has revealed a total of 10 commercial seamen died. As I say, it is a dangerous old job. And as Andy Darvell, all that to put food on people's plates. I don't think we're ever quite grateful enough of that. Now, but the same goes for construction and demolition. We all like to go to our homes and our offices and use our roads. We don't actually think of the potential loss of life that has gone into them. And I go back to what we were saying a little while ago about the Teesworks facility. All of that work, gigafactories, wind turbine blade factories, and all of that kind of thing, all fantastic. Employment for the Northeast, which it's craved for many, many years, but it was built on the death of 2 workers on a demolition site. Hard one to stomach. Tommy Williams and John McKay, obviously. Used to fish out of sea houses, line fishing for cod. Used to do that 3 months of the year. I have to admit, I've been sea fishing probably 2 or 3 times. Not really my cup of tea. I'm much more of a catch and release on a river or a lake or a canal or whatever. But I have to say mackerel fishing, because I love mackerel, basically. Done pots. Remember, a 200-year-old turtle weighed in at 900 kilograms. Took 9 of us to lift it to safety. Wildlife came to access it before we let it back into the sea. 200-year-old turtle. I look like a 200-year-old turtle when I get out of bed in the morning, if that's any help. We should call this Demolition and Fishing Break Fast Show. I think we should. Do you know what? I've talked about it with my mate John Woodward, who is a big fisherman. We've been talking about, it was the last, I don't know if anybody else watches this, but I do. It was the last of the latest series of Gone Fishing last night with Paul Whitehouse and Bob Mortimer. And John and I have been talking about doing our own demolition related one. So just go fishing together, set up a bunch of cameras, set up a bunch of microphones, and just have the 2 of us just chewing the fat for the day, which we do nowhere near as often as I would like. We'll get round to it one of these days, maybe when one of us is retired and the other one can just work around them. But keep an eye out for that. I do need to look at these comments before I actually throw them up on the screen. On the screen. But Carmen says, worst crabs I had was in the Lighthouse, the Limelight nightclub back in '98. She was beautiful though. Well done, sir. Well done. Have you ever watched The Ginger Fisherman on YouTube? I have not. Need to go and check it out. But that is the best best show I've seen for a long time. Paul and Bob are brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Mick Saunders has been watching the scrap metal prices the last couple of weeks. Got a feeling prices are going to drop further until the Indian market comes to save us all. Diggers, there's always one, says Peter McKenna. And Chris Ford says, never any good at fishing, and I've never had crabs. I'm just going to leave that hanging there. I'm not going to comment. As I'm watching you, Mark, I'm receiving multiple messages to join my groups. Got lots of catching up to do. Not a problem, Dad. What it is, we've topped the hour, as we so often do these days. So everybody, please go and have a fantastic day. Yes, abysmally low on the scrap front, says Peter McKenna. Everybody, go and have a fantastic day. I will be back tomorrow, come hell or high water, and for more of the Breakfast Show. We may or may not be talking about fishing by the time that happens. But yes, please, as Andy Darvell just said, stay safe. Oh, excuse me, stay safe, guys. Have a great day. Dan Carter says, have a great day, guys. And bye, folks. Enjoy your day, Peter McKenna. Bye, folks. Bye, Peter. Bye, Dan. Bye, Andy. Bye, everybody else. Go and have a fantastic day. Hopefully, I can spread a little more cheer tomorrow. Later, gents. I'm off, says Mick Saunders. Yep, and I'm going to echo that. Later, gents. I'm off too. I'll see you all tomorrow. All the best.